Everybody knows that Saint Rita is the saint of the impossible, but not everybody knows why she is the saint of the impossible. Not everybody knows about her difficult marriage, the abuses that she went through unfortunately, her unlimited patience and the love that she had for her husband. And even fewer know that one day she miraculously entered the walls of a convent led by St. John the Baptist himself. And much fewer know that she was pierced with a thorn from the crown of our Lord Jesus Christ. And even less know that she was never buried. Are you tired of giving up before life's difficulties? Continue watching to learn how to overcome the impossible. Salve Maria. I am Brother Morgan. Welcome to another episode of our program, Following the Saints. Don't forget to share this video with your friends and family, and subscribe to our channel if you haven't done so already. Now let us dive right into the life of Saint Rita, a popular and widely known devotion. Most of the time, she is represented holding roses because of her famous miracle. She was born in the year 1386 in Rocca, Italy. She always wanted to become a nun, but out of obedience to her parents, she married at a very young age, the age of 12, a very cruel man who treated her very badly. Her husband was very violent. He was rash. He would often treat her rudely. He would even sometimes beat her. What was Rita's attitude? Always patience, always love, always putting herself at the complete disposal of her husband, doing whatever he asked of her. She was the perfect wife. And she was there to serve him. Of course, she constantly prayed to God for at some point, give a solution to the abuse that she was suffering. What was the fruit of St. Rita's attitude? Of bearing such a hard, such a difficult cross with such humility and such faith? One day, her husband knelt before her and said, "My lady, I recognize that I was wrong. For these last 18 years, they were married around 18 years, I have treated you unjustly. I have treated you harshly. I have treated you like nobody deserves to be treated. Will you forgive me?" And St. Rita had already forgiven him many times. St. Rita must have been filled with joy at this moment to finally be able to manifest her forgiveness to her husband. She obtained by her faithfulness during such a difficult trial. It is true, imagine the immense suffering that she went through. She obtained nothing else but the true conversion of her husband. Shortly afterwards, her husband made a good confession, and then he was actually assassinated. Another trial started for Saint Rita. Her two sons, do you believe it? They wanted to take vengeance on the murderer, which would have been a horrible sin. We cannot return evil with evil, but we must return evil with good, with acts of virtue. And that Saint Rita knew. So she started praying to God, "Please God, do something to impede that my sons take the life of this man." Shortly afterwards, her sons became ill, and they died before they could take vengeance. Saint Rita was heard by God. Her prayers were answered. And then another phase started in the life of Saint Rita. She wanted to become a nun, like we mentioned. She wanted to give herself entirely to God. But the Augustinian sisters would not accept her because she was not a virgin. She had already married. And so Saint Rita put herself in the hands of God. One night she was praying in her house, in her living quarters, asking God for some type of miracle so that she could become a nun, like she always wished. And all of a sudden, during the middle of her prayers, St. John the Baptist himself appeared to her along with St. Augustine and St. Nicholas, and transported her. They took her miraculously across the mountaintops to the nearby Augustinian convent. All of the gates were locked. All of the windows were closed. There was no way, humanly speaking, that she could enter. Miraculously, they brought her inside. Of course, she was a little worried about what was going to happen the next morning. What were the sisters going to say when they saw her there in their convent? Well, when the sisters woke up, they found St. Rita there, who they had denied so many times entrance, who they had forbade to become a nun, and they realized that it was truly God's will. They accepted her as an Augustinian nun, another reason why St. Rita is the saint of the impossible. She lived in the convent for the last 40-something years of her life. She had great devotion to meditating on our Lord's Passion. And one day, after a great sermon from one of the famous preachers of the town where she lived, the town of Cascia, she asked our Lord if she could participate more in the sufferings of his Passion. After a whole life full of suffering, she wanted to suffer more. What a beautiful request. Normally it's the opposite. Lord, take away my sufferings. I don't want to suffer. No. St. Rita, Lord, give me the grace to participate in your Passion more fully. She was praying before a crucifix, and a thorn from our Lord's crown pierced her forehead, opening up a wound that would remain for the last 15 years of her life. And from it was a wound on the top of her forehead. From it came very bad odor, horrible smells, even worms. It caused her immense suffering, atrocious suffering, unbearable suffering. And this lasted until she died. When she died, this wound transformed into a ruby. It became beautiful, and from it came forth the most precious perfume. The fragrance was so pleasant, so heavenly, that they decided not to bury her. Another miracle of St. Rita. She was never buried. These are some of the reasons why she is known as the Saint of the Impossible. She converted her husband, who was unconvertible. Her 2 sons, she saved from being assassins themselves. And afterwards, she was transported miraculously through the walls of the Augustinian convent, where she ended up becoming a nun. At her death, her wound, which had been pierced by one of the thorns of our Lord's crown, was transformed into a precious gem, a ruby from which came forth perfume that had a heavenly fragrance, and that for centuries has often filled the church where her body lies until today. Lastly, she was never buried. Until today, her body is incorrupt. And those who go to Cascia can see it, they can venerate it, they can see for themselves. Over 700 years later, and her body is still incorrupt. Saint Rita, saint of the impossible. Make the impossible possible in our lives. I hope you enjoyed this video. Leave a comment below, let us know what you think. And don't forget to click the like button and share this video with all of your friends and family. Until next week, Salve Maria.
If you like this video, press the like button and leave a comment below. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and activate the notification bell so you won't miss any of our videos.